Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next hour. US President Donald Trump calls Colombian President a drug leader, confirms US forces carried out another strike against alleged narco-terrorists in the Caribbean. Colombia accuses the US of violating its sovereignty. Israel accuses Hamas of violating ceasefire as Israeli military launches attacks on Gaza. 16 more deceased hostages yet to be returned. No Kings protests draw massive crowds across the United States to decry Donald Trump, denouncing what they view as authoritarian tendencies of the president. World-renowned museum Louvre in Paris closed after robbers flee with priceless jewellery. Hunt continues for thieves. And temple town of Ayodhya glows as India prepares to celebrate the Festival of Lights. Another Guinness World Record created at Deepotsav with over 2.6 million diyas lit in Ayodhya. Up first, news from the Caribbean. US President Donald Trump on Sunday called Colombian President Gustavo Petro an illegal drug leader and said the United States would seize large-scale payments and subsidies to the South American nation. It comes after President Donald Trump said that the US had struck a drug-carrying submarine on Thursday, killing 2 people. Trump also said that the US will repatriate survivors of the submarine attack to their home countries of Ecuador and Colombia.
Colombia has accused US of violating its sovereignty and killing a fisherman in a recent military strike. The attack took place in Colombian waters while he was fishing in the Caribbean. President Gustavo Petro condemned US for carrying out operations without evidence linking the victims to drug trafficking. US President Donald Trump defended the strike, stating it was part of his campaign against drug traffickers, including the destruction of a drug smuggling submarine.
Trump also referred to Colombian President Gustavo Petro as an illegal drug leader and said that the United States would halt large-scale payments and subsidies to the South American nation.
Trump confirmed 2 traffickers were killed, while 2 others, including a Colombian, were sent back for prosecution. One of the surviving suspects, Jason Obando Perez from Colombia, was confirmed by Interior Minister. Perez arrived in serious condition with brain trauma on a ventilator after being sedated and drugged. While Ecuador's Interior Ministry also confirmed receiving one of the survivors, stating he's being medically evaluated and legal proceedings will follow. Earlier this month, Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth announced the formation of a joint task force under US Southern Command to target drug trafficking organizations. This strike, part of a larger US military campaign, aims to curb the flow of drugs from Latin America. Since September, at least 3 vessels have been struck, with some linked to Venezuela. Washington has not disclosed the origin of the latest drug smuggling submarine. These semi-submersibles have been used for years to transport cocaine, primarily from Colombia to Central America or Mexico via the Pacific Ocean. While US claims its actions are disrupting drug trafficking, no evidence has been provided that those killed were drug smugglers. Experts have called the strikes extrajudicial executions, and Venezuela's government has condemned the operations, denying involvement in drug trafficking. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Professor Anshu Joshi from the School of International Studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi joins us on the show now. Welcome, ma'am, and wishes to you of a happy Diwali. Let's discuss what President Trump is doing in the Caribbean. Well, he seems intent on striking at those smuggling drugs into the United States, and Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth has announced the formation of a joint task force to curb the flow of drugs from Latin America. So how big a problem is drug smuggling from Latin America into the US?
Tanvi, first and foremost, a very happy Diwali to you and all the audiences. And let me straight away come to the answer of your question. Indeed, all these narco-terrorist activities, which is a very dangerous concoction of illicit drug trafficking plus terrorist activities, wherein different drug cartels based out of these South American countries, for example, FARC, or this Medellin cartel, which was established by the most infamous drug mafia of the world, Pablo Escobar. There are drug cartels based out of Peru and Venezuela, Bolivia, and so on. And all these organizations have now shaken their hands with different terrorist organizations like Hezbollah, Taliban, ISIS, and so on. In fact, Hezbollah has a headquarters in Honduras. So the illicit drugs that are continuously being sent to United States of America cause or pose a very significant threat to its national security as well as economic growth. So all these illicit drugs not only impact the people living in United States of America socially, but then they also generate crime, and they impact the economic growth of the country. And having said that, we have seen that since 1983, when this term narco-terrorism was coined by Peruvian president to describe the illicit drug trafficking as well as terrorist activities carried out by the drug cartel, very infamous drug cartel of Peru, Shining Path. From that time, we have seen that how all these drug cartels have used two routes. First one is like through the Pacific route, the another one is through Caribbean corridor to send drugs via Central America. And once these drugs or these cargoes reach to the ports controlled by Mexico, the Mexican players send all these shipments through land borders to United States of America. That is why there is a big issue between border issue between United States of America and Mexico. But indeed, this is a big challenge for America. And I would also like to state that bringing all these non-state actors or all these drug cartels or mafias or terrorist organizations into a norms building mechanism or like a normative framework is almost impossible. That is why the US military is carrying out several strikes against the suspected smuggling ships in international waters.
Okay, Professor Anshu, could you please tell us a little bit more about these drug-carrying submarines or semi-submersibles that for years have been used to smuggle cocaine into Central America and Mexico?
Yes. So Colombia is known for producing the largest amount of cocaine, and Colombia actually sends mostly all these illicit drugs through its ports via the route of Pacific ports, and then the drugs are sent through, like, cargoes move from Pacific ports through Mexico, and as I said, once they reach to the borders or the ports controlled by Mexican players, the cargo containers are then taken care of by the Mexican players. Mostly the shipments, the illicit drugs, particularly cocaine, are moved by the sea route, and they are like usually small vessels. So usually fishermen or small boats and fishing vessels are used for sending all these illicit drugs to United States of America. And there are narco submarines also, Tanvi, wherein they are like tailor-made, and they are semi-submersible, and they could be fully submersible also. They are very difficult to detect, and they can carry multiple tons of shipments or drugs. And only drugs are not sent through these vessels, Tanvi. Weapons and human smuggling is also executed through these shipments or these vessels.
Okay. US President Donald Trump has called Colombian President Petro an illegal drug leader. How do you look at the charge?
See, this is like a very old problem or a challenge for United States of America to deal with. And there are multiple players in South American region related to this illicit drug trafficking activities. And when all these illicit drug trafficking activities are combined with the terrorist activities, the challenge becomes like exponentially bigger or critical for the American leader. And in recent past, we have seen that the US military forces are carrying out continuous strikes on these kind of suspected vessels. And in last month also, there was a strike in which a fisherman was killed. And from here, the whole this particular episode started, wherein the Colombian president condemned Trump's administration, and he also called for like international inquiry into the matters, and he condemned this entire strike. After that, now yesterday, we have heard the news that Trump was retaliated. Now Trump has, after another strike, Trump has called the Colombian president as like a drug trafficker himself, and he has alleged the Colombian president Porto for promoting illicit drug trafficking activities. So we have to understand that this is like a very big issue of narco-terrorism, which is like a big challenge for not only for the peace and security for United States of America, but for like global peace and security. And we have seen there are different normative frameworks so far, so Tanvi. But as I stated, involving non-state actors or these drug cartels into any kind of normative frameworks is almost impossible. So that's why using latest technologies, detecting all these shipments, movements, and executing strikes remains the only way to check these activities.
But these strikes, experts say are extrajudicial executions. Venezuela has asked the UN Security Council to call these US strikes illegal. So what are the legal implications of such actions by the US? Also, does it open the US to criminal proceedings?
That is what the Colombian president is demanding for, because so far, so that is what he has stated, that if it was like the vessel was or the boat was having any illicit drug shipment, then Trump should come forward with the evidences. And that is what he has been time and again demanding. He is demanding for an explanation from Trump's administration, and he is also asking for a legal action or inquiry at an international level. And that is where Trump also knows that if he would not be able to produce any evidences against this strike internationally, in that case, definitely there are legal implications. However, the strikes were conducted in international waters, and though Colombian president is alleging US government of executing these strikes, and he is called as in like an attack on sovereignty of Colombia. So this entire episode is related to a terrorist activity and illicit drug trafficking, Tanvi, and that is why it is very difficult at the moment to say that what would be the conclusion, because Trump has also mentioned that he would continue with such kind of strikes in future as well.
Okay, another update that we told our viewers earlier, that US is also cutting down the aid that it gives to Colombia. Thank you very much, Professor Anshu Joshi, for being with us on the show. More from the US, hundreds of protesters marched and chanted against the Trump administration in Washington, D.C. on Saturday as No Kings protest rallies swept several cities in the United States and even abroad. Even events in Philadelphia, Atlanta, Denver, Chicago, Seattle, Boston drew thousands who denounced what they viewed as authoritarian tendencies of the US president. DD India's Adamya Mishra reports.
United States is witnessing a sweeping wave of unrest as No Kings protests surge nationwide, with citizens taking to streets to oppose President Donald Trump and what they see as a dangerous drift towards authoritarian rule. US Senator Bernie Sanders warned of Trump's authoritarian drift during his keynote address at a No Kings rally in Washington on Saturday.
Today in the year 2025, in this dangerous moment in American history, our message is exactly the same. No, President Trump, we don't want you or any other king to rule us. Thank you very much, but we will maintain our democratic form of society. We will not move toward authoritarianism in America. We, the people, will rule.
The protests reflected growing unease among many Americans, mainly on the ideological left, with developments such as the criminal prosecution of Trump's perceived political enemies his militarized immigration crackdown and the sending of National Guard troops into US cities. In Los Angeles, protesters said that they fear the deployment of troops and policy rollbacks marked a deeper erosion of civil liberties.
No King's Day means that we have a quote-unquote president who is behaving like a ruler. He's punishing anybody who speaks up and speaks out against him. He's instilling fear in communities both inside the White House and in our neighborhoods. And his policies are that of a despot.
Meanwhile, in Chicago, demonstrators filled the streets as Donald Trump's administration asked the US Supreme Court on Friday to allow his deployment of National Guard troops to Illinois as the Republican president moves to dispatch military personnel to a growing number of Democratic-led locals and expand the use of armed forces for domestic purposes. Protests against Trump administration gathered pace in various other places, including Seattle, Atlanta, and Mexico, with more than 2,600 planned rallies in major cities, towns, and suburbs, challenging Trump-led agenda that has reshaped the government and upended democratic norms with unprecedented speed since he took office in January. Adamya Mishra's report for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu renames the conflict with Hamas as the War of Redemption. Afghanistan and Pakistan agreed to the new ceasefire during talks hosted by Doha. And Kenyans pay their last respects to former Prime Minister Raila Odinga at the burial ceremony in Bondo.
Prepare for the brightest night of the year. Story of Diwali and its diversity. It's time for the Festival of Lights.
Indian industries are facing pressure because of President Trump's tariff threats.
Even tariffs are part of the story, actually. If you were to look at the whole story of the deindustrialization of India, it began in many ways under the British rule. They say, oh, it's not our fault. India fell behind because you missed the bus for the Industrial Revolution. My answer is we missed the bus is because you threw us under its wheels.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. World-renowned Louvre Museum in Paris was closed on Sunday following a daring robbery that targeted its historic ornaments. The French Interior Ministry confirmed the thieves broke into the museum through a window and stole jewellery pieces with inestimable heritage before escaping on motorbikes. Officials said beyond their market value, these items have inestimable heritage value and, of course, historical significance. Meanwhile, police inspected a crane outside the Louvre Museum in Paris, which was believed to have been used in the robbery. French Culture Minister Rachida Dati said that the robbery had taken place on Sunday, but no injuries were reported. The French government said jewellery was stolen from an area that houses the French crown jewels. The museum would remain closed for the day. On to West Asia now. The Israeli military said it launched airstrikes and artillery fire at targets in southern Gaza on Sunday in response to Hamas violating the ceasefire agreement. Israeli government spokesperson Shosh Bedroshian said that the Israel launched strikes after terrorists fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire towards Israeli troops working to dismantle terrorist infrastructure.
Today, the IDF announced terrorists fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire towards our troops operating in the area of Rafah to dismantle terrorist infrastructure, all in accordance with the ceasefire agreement. Now, in response, the IDF began striking in the area to eliminate the threat. Just before I came on here, we actually released a statement following Hamas's violation of the ceasefire that the prime minister held a consultation with the defense minister and the heads of the security establishment and instructed them to act forcefully against terrorist targets inside of the Gaza Strip.
The spokesperson further said that Hamas is required to uphold its commitments to the mediators to return the remaining hostages as part of this agreement. She also added that there are 16 more deceased hostages that need to be returned.
Hamas is required to uphold its commitments to the mediators, including President Trump, to return our remaining hostages as part of this agreement. The prime minister has made it abundantly clear there will be no compromise and Israel will spare no effort until all of our fallen hostages are home. There are 16 more hostages that need to be returned.
Hundreds gathered in Jerusalem on Sunday to bid farewell to Uriel Baruch, an Israeli hostage. His body was returned to Israel nearly 2 years after he was killed and abducted during the October 7th Hamas attacks. Baruch was returned to Israel on October 14th as part of a US-led ceasefire which took effect on October the 11th. So Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened a cabinet meeting on Sunday to vote on the officially naming the Gaza conflict as the War of Redemption. The conflict that started after a Hamas-led surprise attack on Israeli border communities on October 7th, 2023 was initially named Iron Swords by the Israeli army.
Today, I'm submitting for government approval the proposal to give the war a permanent official name. The War of Redemption. This is the War of Redemption of our people as a direct continuation of the War of Independence. We are also about to award medals of valor and citations to our brave soldiers and commanders. As in previous military campaigns, the decorations for the current campaign will bear the official name of the War of Redemption.
Further westwards, Qatar's foreign ministry announced on Sunday that Afghanistan and Pakistan have agreed on an immediate ceasefire following high-level talks in Doha. Mediated by Qatar and Turkey, the Saturday negotiations led by Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif and Afghanistan's Mullah Muhammad Yaqoob aim to end a week of deadly clashes along their 2,600-kilometre border. The violence triggered by Islamabad's demands for Kabul to curb cross-border terrorists killed over 50 and wounded hundreds, including civilians. A 48-hour truce extended on Friday held despite alleged Pakistani airstrikes in Paktika province, which Kabul decried as violations. Both sides pledged follow-up meetings to sustain the ceasefire, establish verification mechanisms and foster lasting peace in the region. Bolivians began casting their votes on Sunday in a contested presidential runoff, marking a historic shift from 2 decades of dominance by the movement to socialism MAS party. The election is being monitored by international observers from the European Union and the Organization of the American States, with enhanced measures in place to ensure transparency following allegations of fraud during the 2019 presidential vote. The runoff election pits centrist Senator Rodrigo Paz against conservative former President Jorge Tuto Quiroga, with voters facing a critical choice amid Bolivia's worst economic crisis in decades. Centrist presidential candidate Rodrigo Paz cast his vote on Sunday in Tarija, marking what he called a historic moment for the region and the nation as Bolivia holds its presidential runoff election. Paz voted early in the election where he faced conservative rival Tuto Quiroga running for the centrist Christian Democratic Party. Paz defied expectations in the August 17th first round, securing 32% of the vote, well ahead of opinion poll predictions. Australia's Labor government defended its $1.62 billion agreement with Nauru to deport hundreds of non-citizens with criminal records over 30 years, as per Home Affairs Minister's announcement on Sunday. The deal, signed in September, grants deportees 30-year work visas in Nauru, a Pacific nation of 12,000. The Human Rights Watch condemned the plan, citing past deaths from medical neglect and suicide among asylum seekers sent there. Nauru locals voiced mixed sentiments about integrating deportees. The policy revives criticism of Australia dumping refugees on small islands with no appeal process for denied visas, sparking human rights debates. Britain launched a national plan on Sunday to train and recruit hundreds of thousands for clean energy jobs, targeting 860,000 by 2030. 5 new colleges will focus on solar, wind and nuclear careers, while schemes aid ex-offenders, school leavers and unemployed workers. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband emphasised meeting demand for plumbers, electricians and welders amid booming renewable and nuclear investments. The plan ensures fair pay and protections for workers in publicly funded projects. Aimed to decarbonise electricity by 2030, Britain plans to double clean energy investment to over £30 billion annually by 2035, boosting energy security. On to Africa now. Kenya's longtime opposition leader Raila Odinga was buried in a state funeral in the west of the country on Sunday after days of commemorations attended by tens of thousands of followers. Odinga died aged 80 on Wednesday, sparking an outpouring of grief for a politician who spent years fighting for democracy during the autocratic rule of Daniel Arap Moi. Thousands of people crowded into the city of Bondo for the funeral, travelling from all around the country. Military officers saluted as Odinga's coffin was lowered into the ground and trumpets played the last post. Days of memorials have already caused 5 deaths in Nairobi. 3 died on Thursday when police opened fire during an event in a stadium, and at least 2 more were killed on Friday in a stampede. Voters in breakaway North Cyprus went to polls on Sunday in a presidential election seen as a key test for reviving talks to reunify the divided island. Incumbent leader Ersin Tatar, who supports a 2-state solution, faces his main challenger, Tufan Erhuman, who backs UN-led negotiations for a federal settlement with Greek Cypriots. 7 candidates are contesting, but the race is expected to be close between Tatar and Erhuman, with a runoff likely on October 26th if no one secures a majority. Cyprus has remained divided since 1974 following a Turkish invasion triggered by a Greek-backed coup, ending years of tension after the collapse of a power-sharing administration in 1963. Still to come on DD India News Hour. India's Chandrayaan-2 detects solar ejections' impact on Moon's atmosphere for the first time. We dissect the significance of this observation with our expert. And the sacred relics of Lord Buddha return from Russia's Kalmykia to New Delhi.
Prepare for the brightest night of the year. Story of Diwali and its diversity. It's time for the Festival of Lights.
geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News. I'm Tanvi Taneja. A reminder of the headlines we are tracking at this hour. US President Donald Trump calls Colombian President a drug leader, confirms US forces carried out another strike against alleged narco-terrorists in the Caribbean. Colombia accuses the US of violating its sovereignty. Israel accuses Hamas of violating ceasefire as military launches attacks on Gaza. 16 more deceased hostages yet to be returned. And temple town of Ayodhya glows as India prepares to celebrate the Festival of Lights. Another Guinness World Record created at the ports with over 2.6 million diyas lit in Ayodhya. In a first, India's Chandrayaan-2 lunar mission has recorded the impact of solar coronal mass ejections on the moon. ISRO's CHASE-2 instrument detected a tenfold rise in neutral atoms and molecules in moon's thin exosphere during a rare solar event on May 10, 2024. The findings confirm long-held theories about solar effects and show how moon's atmosphere is highly sensitive to space weather. ISRO says this breakthrough will help plan future lunar missions and deepen our understanding of lunar space conditions. DD India's Nishchoy Roy reports.
In a landmark scientific breakthrough that pushes the boundaries of space science, the Indian Space Research Organization has unlocked a cosmic first. India's second moon mission, Chandrayaan-2, has made the world's first observation of the sun's coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, impacting the moon. ISRO says this breakthrough offers new insights into how solar activity influences the lunar environment, helping scientists understand the moon's thin atmosphere or exosphere and the effects of space weather on its surface. Launched on July 22, 2019 from the Satish Dhawan Space Center, Sriharikota, the spaceport of India, Chandrayaan-2 carries 8 scientific payloads. Though contact with the Vikrama lander was lost during descent, the orbit remains fully functional in a 100-kilometer lunar orbit. The Chandra's Atmospheric Compositional Explorer 2, CHASE-2, payload aboard Chandrayaan-2 captured effects of a rare solar event on May 10, 2024. Massive CMEs from the sun struck the moon, causing a sharp rise in exosphere pressure. ISRO scientists observed a tenfold increase in neutral atoms and molecules. Finding confirm long-held theories on solar impact, observed for the first time directly. The moon's exosphere, a thin gas layer, is highly sensitive to solar activity. CME impact briefly alter the moon's atmospheric composition and conditions. ISRO says the findings go beyond scientific curiosity. They could help shape future lunar missions and the design of human habits on the moon. Nishchoy Ray's report for DD India.
And Dr. Ajay Lele, space expert from the IDSA, joins us now on the show. Welcome, sir, and wishing you a very happy Diwali. Well, India's Chandrayaan-2 lunar orbiter has made the first ever observation of the effects of the sun's coronal mass ejection on the moon. How significant is this observation in terms of its purely scientific importance?
Wishing you all a very happy Diwali. I think this is a very significant observation which ISRO's basically the Chandrayaan-2 mission orbiter has given. Essentially because till date we had only theoretical assumptions that this sort of activity will remain. But now what happens is that the ISRO's orbiter, which is there now for more than 6 years. In fact, just to tell you that when the orbiter was launched, it was thought that orbiter will last only for 1 year. But subsequently, there was a realization that the mission had taken off so successfully. So a lot of fuel saving had happened, and it is expected that this orbiter will last for 7.5 years. So out of 8 payloads, this particular payload has taken these observations in month of May last year. These observations are very significant because as you know that as far as Earth is concerned, Earth atmosphere has got certain amount of layers. So whatever coronal mass ejections happen, they do not directly come in the contact of the surface of the Earth. There is certain amount of absorption which is done because of the Earth's atmosphere. But that is not the case with the moon's atmosphere because there is no moon atmosphere. That's why it is an exosphere, a very thin layer, which has got gases like argon, neon, helium and all that. So whenever such type of a coronal mass ejections happen, they directly hit the surface of the moon. And because of the coronal mass ejections, the atoms from the surface of the moon, they rise in the height. And since there is no gravity, they remain in a particular position at that height, and this increases the pressure. Theoretically, we were aware of it, but now ISRO has proved it scientifically. Particularly since now the entire world is looking at moon not as only a activity to undertake certain amount of emissions, but from a future colonization of a moon. So if humans are going to stay over there, various activities are going to happen over there, definitely we need to factor in the issues related with space weather. And this is what this particular invention has told us. Just to tell you the history of a space weather in recent times in the year 2022, Elon Musk had launched for his Starlink constellation around 49 satellites. But at that time, coronal mass ejections, the CMEs were so strong that 40 of that satellites had gone unserviceable. Because we all know that how the coronal mass ejections actually impact the electronics part of the satellite systems. And that is the most dangerous thing. So tomorrow when you're going to undertake missions to moon, missions to Mars and other planets, basically your navigational systems, your communication systems, if such type of activity happens, then it will give you certain amount of misreadings. And that's why this particular activity which has happened and particular formulation which ISRO has made based on the scientific data which has been observed. If you see, the data was observed in the year 2022, but we came to know about it only yesterday. This is because a lot amount of activities do happen in between, and the scientific papers are getting peer reviewed. So all types of precautions are taken before you come to any specific conclusion.
Okay, so what do these latest findings, Dr. Lele, tell us about, of course, the future lunar missions and the design of human habitat on the moon?
Definitely. When you're going to design a human habitat, you need to factor in the issues related with space weather. Because what happens is that on Earth, we always factor in the aspects of weather because that is what is visible. But as far as these planets are concerned, there is no atmosphere over there. So you feel that there is no weather, so we need not to factor that thing over there. But sun always emits the CMEs, and those CMEs at times reach to the surface of the Earth or the surface of the moon, and you need to factor them. The possibility, the probability of such type of a CMEs directly hitting to the lunar surface is very less. But if you're going to have a human colonization over there, then definitely you need to factor in these things because the people, the astronauts will have a certain amount of impacts because of radiation and all other side effects of these coronal mass ejections. And if you have to have a human establishment over there, you have got no other option but to factor in these things and plan and actually design your entire structure where humans are going to stay on the surface of the moon. You will have to have a certain amount of solar hardening mechanisms to be put in practice because that's the only way you can avoid getting impact of these types of CMEs.
Okay, and where do you see India standing as a space exploring nation in, say, 20 years from now?
You see, as far as this particularly, let's stay on the same topic of a space weather. India has launched a satellite called Aditya L1 couple of years back. That also is actually going to study or is studying the activities which are happening on the surface of the sun, because that's what is the basic challenge which is going to come up. I'm not saying that this challenge was not there earlier, but the activities in space were very limited. So the challenges of a space weather were not looked into very seriously. But that's what is going to happen now. Since you're talking of 20 years hence, I can say that we are having an ambition of sending a human to the moon by 2040. So definitely you need to factor in the aspects of a space weather very significantly in all your space missions. And India has already started working towards it. Chandrayaan-2 is just one example. Aditya L1 is already undertaking a lot amount of observations and pitting those observations into the global system where all these activities are monitored. Then we have got other satellites also like Astro satellite, which is again a very important satellite which is telling us about the galaxies and other aspects associated with the cosmos. So I think at one end we are developing satellite systems for the purposes of social economic development, where we are putting remote sensing satellites, communication satellites, navigational satellites, and at other end we are looking at a bigger picture. We are looking at a cosmos, and the activities like this, the inventions like this, basically are part and parcel of India's entire game of looking towards cosmos very positively.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ajay Lele, for throwing more light on India's strides in space technology. Wishing you a very happy Diwali, sir.
Thank you. Same to you.
Union Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav is in New Delhi as he inspected the crowd management for better arrangements. Railway Minister Vaishnav inspected the festive arrangements at New Delhi and Anand Vihar railway stations ahead of Diwali and Chhath Puja festivals as he interacted with passengers and reviewed preparations to ensure smooth travel. Vaishnav further urged people not to share all misleading videos online and warned of action against those spreading misinformation at the time of these festivals.
पूरे देश भर में जो बहुत बड़े सेंटर्स हैं जहां पे एक साथ सडन पैसेंजर्स का सर्ज आता है, चाहे वो साउथ में हो, वेस्ट में हो, सब जगह बहुत बड़ी मात्रा में व्यवस्था की गई है। और मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा सभी सिविल सोसाइटी के मेंबर्स से भी कि ऐसे में जो बीच-बीच में भ्रामक वीडियो और पुराने वीडियो को चलाकर लोगों में एक भ्रम की स्थिति पैदा करने की कोशिश करते हैं, वैसा न करें।
The sacred relics of Lord Buddha returned from Russia's Kalmykia Republic to New Delhi. An emotional farewell ceremony for Buddha's sacred relics was held in Elista, Kalmykia in Russia. The head Lama thanked the Government of India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi for sending the relics and presented a letter of appreciation to Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, Manoj Sinha, who represented India at the event. Manoj Sinha said the moment was deeply emotional and that Lord Buddha's teachings inspire humanity to overcome challenges and move towards progress. The Governor of Kalmykia also expressed gratitude to the people of India for sharing this historic and sacred occasion. Recent GST reforms, including rate cuts on food, health essentials and consumer durables, have been widely praised across India. Health practitioners maintained that the changes have brought transformative improvements to healthcare, making medical devices and preventive medicines more affordable and accessible, particularly for the poor.
See, the goods and services tax or GST, it's brought a very transformative change in India's healthcare, realizing the vision of affordable healthcare for all the people. In a very major reform for the GST, this has been done, especially on the essential medicines and medical devices associated. It's been reduced mostly from 12 to 5% approximately. And in some cases, it's completely been waived off. This includes very important life-saving drugs, diagnostic kits, various surgical items like gauzes, oxygen cylinders, bandages, etc. These reductions are expected to actually lower the overall treatment costs, which is there.
Still to come on DD India News. India dispatches its first commercially packaged multi-chip module made in Gujarat to a US firm in California. Mitchell Marsh powers Australia to ODI victory against India as Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli failed to shine in their return to international cricket.
Prepare for the brightest night of the year. Story of Diwali and its diversity. It's time for the Festival of Lights.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium, we'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Thank you for staying with us on DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. India's semiconductor dream takes another leap forward. Kane Semicon's Sanand facility in Gujarat has achieved a historic milestone, rolling out the country's first commercially packaged multi-chip module, a crucial step in India's journey towards semiconductor self-reliance. A report.
Kane Semicon's outsourced semiconductor assembly and test facility in Sanand, Gujarat has dispatched India's first batch of commercially packaged multi-chip modules to Alpha and Omega Semiconductor, a leading global player based in Sunnyvale, USA. Nearly 900 intelligent power modules were shipped on Wednesday, marking the beginning of India's entry into advanced semiconductor packaging for global clients.
This is the first of its kind, and India and particularly in the world as well. We could do this in a record time. We are the first one to deliver products to our customers in a multi-chip module. And this is technically by far the most complex chip that India has done. And this we have done in a very, very record time.
So what exactly are intelligent power modules or IPMs? They are compact electronic chips that control and protect electricity flow, helping devices like motors, appliances and electric vehicles operate smoothly and efficiently, all while saving energy and space.
This delivery became very sweet because we just concluded the stage 2 audit of our IMS ISO audit. which concluded along with the delivery 900 parts to our customer.
The Sanand OSAT facility was established under the India Semiconductor Mission 1.0 with a central investment of 1,653 crore. Production on the pilot line began in April this year, and in just a few months, it has delivered a Made in India chip package to the global market, a key milestone in realizing the vision of Make in India for the world. From design to dispatch, India's semiconductor ecosystem is finally taking shape, and Gujarat Sanand is emerging as the country's new silicon hub. Tapas Bhattacharya's report for DD India.
And in sports news now, Australia's stand-in captain Mitchell Marsh led his side to a 7-wicket triumph over India in the rain-affected first one-day international in Perth. Marsh continued his fine run of form, scoring 46 not out, while Jose Felipe, playing his first ODI since 2021 due to the absence of Josh Inglis and Alex Carey, supported his skipper with an aggressive 37. Earlier, a quick-fire 38 runs off 31 balls from KL Rahul helped India put up 136 runs for the loss of 9 wickets in 26 overs. Australia needed 131 runs to win, which they reached after losing 3 wickets. The total was adjusted as per the Duckworth-Lewis system in a frustrating start to the 3-game series. Persistent rain forced the players out of the field on multiple occasions. Now the series moves to Adelaide for the second match on Thursday before concluding in Sydney on Saturday. And next news of Diwali festivities. President Draupadi Murmu extended greetings to her fellow citizens on the eve of Diwali. In a message, the President said, and I quote her here, "Diwali, one of India's most popular festivals, is celebrated with great zeal and enthusiasm. The festival symbolizes the triumph of light over darkness, knowledge over ignorance, and good over evil. Celebrated across the country with immense fervour, the auspicious occasion of Diwali gives the message of mutual affection and brotherhood. On this day, devotees worship Goddess Lakshmi, the deity of wealth and prosperity. This festival of joy is also an occasion for self-reflection and self-improvement. This festival is also an opportunity to help and support the deprived and the needy and to bring joy into their lives. I urge everyone to celebrate Diwali safely, responsibly, and in an environment-friendly manner. May this Diwali bring happiness, peace and prosperity to all." Unquote. So as India readies to celebrate the Festival of Lights, the festive fervour reached its peak. With just a day to go now, streets across major cities are bustling with activity, glowing rows of diyas, stalls stacked with sweets, shop fronts glittering with decorative lights and ethnic wear. The historical significance of Diwali lies in its celebration of the triumph of good over evil, a timeless story that resonates across India in countless ways. For many Hindus, it marks the joyous return of Lord Ram to Ayodhya after vanquishing the demon king Ravan. The day is also dedicated to Goddess Lakshmi, symbolizing wealth and prosperity, believed by some to be her wedding day with Lord Vishnu, and by others the day she emerged from the cosmic ocean. However, this year's celebrations come with a strong environmental reminder. The Supreme Court of India lifted the blanket ban on firecrackers but allowed only green crackers approved by the National Environmental Engineering Research Institute to be permitted. Now, the bursting time is between 6 to 7 a.m. and 8 to 10 p.m. on October 19th and 20th. 168 temporary licenses have been issued for sale of these green crackers in New Delhi. Retailers must dispose of unsold stock within 2 days after the festival of Diwali. Shops selling banned crackers will face closure and license loss. So Delhi police will lead these intensive patrols with their squads ensuring compliance. And India's temple town of Ayodhya is glowing as Deepotsav 2025 celebrations continue with full grandeur. Deepotsav 2025 created a new Guinness World Record with 2.6 million diyas illuminating 56 ghats across the banks of River Saryu. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath said that the festival of Deepotsav has become a defining identity of the northern state of Uttar Pradesh.
Ayodhya is immersed in divine glow, marking the 9th edition of Deepotsav on Sunday, with the temple town creating another Guinness World Record by lighting over 2.6 million diyas across 56 banks of Saryu River.
Tonight, it gives me great pleasure to officially announce that both titles have been broken and this display is officially amazing. Yesterday, 2,128 diya rotations were counted simultaneously. And today, 26,17,215 oil lamps. So congratulations, you are officially amazing.
Themed Ayodhya, city of light and devotion, the ghats were adorned with diya-shaped lights. A major attraction was the 32-feet Pushpak Viman at Ram Ki Pairi, showcasing scenes from the sacred Ramayana. State Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath led the Deepotsav celebrations in Ayodhya with 33,000 volunteers. He lauded the efforts of people of the state.
दीपोत्सव के इस कार्यक्रम को उत्तर प्रदेश की पहचान बनाने के लिए उत्तर प्रदेश के नौजवानों के सामने, उत्तर प्रदेश के नागरिकों के सामने पहचान का संकट न खड़ा हो और कोई भी उनकी आस्था के साथ खिलवाड़ करने का दुस्साहस न कर सके। इसीलिए उत्तर प्रदेश में डबल इंजन की सरकार बनने के बाद से हम लोगों ने लगातार उस प्रकार के प्रयास प्रारंभ किए हैं।
The event showcased Ayodhya's rich culture and devotion, drew massive crowds and significantly boosted tourism. Bureau Report, DD India.
While Diwali is celebrated in various forms across India, the consistent theme is the lighting of lamps, signifying the victory of good over evil. So the entire team of Doordarshan wishes you and your family a very happy Diwali. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Thank you for tuning in. Namaskar.